Tonight on Joy News Prime, from 1st April, you will pay 15 pesos less on all petroleum products. Finance Minister announced this measure to cushion Ghanaians for the next 3 months.
To mitigate the impact of the rising price of petroleum products at the pump for the next 3 months, government has decided to reduce margins in petroleum price build-up by a total of 15 pesos per litre with effect from 1st April.
Well, minority in Parliament insists the Finance Minister's announcement will in no way address the rising cost of living and the rising cost of doing business in the country.
His measures does not respond to a country which is debt distress. Our debt is simply not sustainable.
Well, tonight the Ghana Private Road Transport Union says 15 pesos reduction is insignificant, insisting the union will still increase transport fares.
By the time we were giving the 15%, even the drivers were even complaining bitterly that they were thinking that the 15% increment is too small for us.
In today's edition of Living Standard series, tenants say high rent is killing them slowly.
The rent issue in this country is becoming a headache that is driving a lot of people crazy.
And obviously at 8 p.m. I will hand it over to Charles for Prime Business, and Oreko will also be joining us with Prime Sports. Charles, what's coming up in business?
Well, tonight a tax expert is predicting tough times for Ghana's economy, stating the fact that the Finance Minister has not just announced relief for Ghanaians but also austerity measures moving forward.
It is time to tighten our belts, and the average Ghanaian should prepare for difficult times ahead. I think we are not going to say it in any uncertain terms. Times are going to be a little bit difficult for a while, but we expect that over time.
And in sports,
Black Stars coach Otto Addo remains optimistic ahead of the crucial World Cup playoff against Nigeria in just 24 hours' time.
This skepticism, which was among the press, or a lot of people, made us actually work harder. So we have a plan. This is for sure. For sure, I can't tell the plan right now. You have to play the game, and then everybody hopefully will see.
Well, feel free to be a part of us tonight. Let's get interactive. 15 pesos reduction in fuel prices from 1st of April. What's your reaction to all of these new measures introduced by the Finance Minister? Feel free to join us on social media. Join us on all of our platforms. My name is Blessed Sugan. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Stay for details. Well, so here's what we know. From the 1st of April, you will pay 15 pesos less on every litre of petrol product you purchase at the pump. This is not an April Fool's joke. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who made this announcement today, said this measure will mitigate the impact of the rising price of petroleum products at the pumps for the next 3 months. Mr. Ofori-Atta explained that the rising fuel prices at the pumps are largely influenced by the rising crude oil prices on the international market and exchange rate depreciation. On average, fuel prices have gone up by more than 50%, and this reduction is less than 2% and for only 3 months. Now, according to him, while the rise in crude oil prices on the international market should have benefited the country on a net basis, Ghana's imports of petroleum products amounted to some 5.2 times the value of its crude oil export proceeds, and that's why the fuel prices keep going up.
Rising prices of fuel at the pumps is influenced largely by the rising crude oil price on the international market and the exchange rate depreciation. Though the rising crude oil prices should have been to our benefit on net basis, Ghana's import of petroleum products amounts to 5.2 times the value of proceeds from its crude oil exports. In 2021, for example, we exported $3.947 billion of crude, of which Ghana's portion was $513 million. However, we imported $2.6 $719 of crude and finished products. So the purported windfall gain in foreign exchange is quite a mirage. From January to date, the average export price of diesel and petrol have increased by 57% and 45% respectively. Unlike in other countries where the hike in crude oil prices and exchange rate volatility are leading to shortages in supply of petroleum products, government is implementing measures to guarantee constant supply of petroleum products. To mitigate the impact of the rising price of petroleum products at the pump for the next 3 months, government has decided to reduce margins in petroleum price build-up by a total of 15 pesos per litre with effect from 1st April. The details are as follows: bus margin reduced by 2 pesos per litre, Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund margin reduced by 9 pesos per litre, fuel margin reduced by 1 peso per litre, primary distribution margin reduced by 3 pesos per litre. Ladies and gentlemen, these reductions in margins are expected to reduce prices of petrol by 1.6% and diesel by 1.4%. We anticipate that the measures taken to strengthen the currency will help further stabilize the prices at the pump.
Well, Ken Ofuriatta also provided some details on the cuts being made to public expenditure. There is a suspension on the purchase of new vehicles by state institutions and a ban on foreign travels by government officials unless it is absolutely necessary, and explains that this is expected to save the state some $3.5 billion.
Discretionary spending is to be further cut by an additional 10%. The Ministry of Finance is currently meeting with MDAs to review their spending plans for the rest of the 3 quarters to achieve the discretionary expenditure cuts. 2, these times call for very efficient use of energy resources. In line with this, there will be a 50% cut in fuel coupon allocations for all political appointees and heads of government institutions, including SOEs, effective 1st February 2022. With immediate effect, government has imposed a complete moratorium on the purchase of imported vehicles for the rest of the year. This will affect all new orders, especially four-wheel drives. We will ensure that the overall effect is to reduce total vehicle purchases by the public sector by at least 50% for the period. Again, with immediate effect, government has imposed a moratorium on all foreign travels except pre-approved critical statutory travels. 5, government will conclude on ongoing measures to eliminate ghost workers from the government payroll by end December 2022. Government will conclude the renegotiations of the energy sector IPP's capacity charges by end of Q3 2022 to further reduce excess capacity payments by 20% to generate a total savings of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. We will impose a moratorium on establishment of new public sector institutions by end of April 2022, prioritize ongoing public projects over new projects. This is to enhance the efficient use of limited public funds over the period by finishing ongoing or stalled but approved projects. Reduce expenditure on all meetings and conferences by 50% effective immediately. Pursue a comprehensive reprofiling strategies to reduce the interest expense burden on the fiscal, and liaise with organized labor and employers association to implement with immediate effect the measures captured in the Quao Declaration of the 2022 National Labour Conference.
Government is also revamping its effort at raising more revenue, including an aggressive collection of property rates and implementing the e-commerce initiative.
Our expenditures alone will not be enough. Our focus is therefore twofold: to control expenditure and to raise more revenue domestically. As such, we will therefore begin the implementation and collection of the revised property rate by end of April 2022. We'll implement the e-VAT, e-commerce and e-gaming initiatives by end of April 2022. We will roll out a simplified tax filing mobile application for all eligible taxpayers by July 2022. We will impress upon Parliament to to fast-track the passage of the E-levy bill, tax exemptions bill, and fees and charges bill. Prioritize the revenue assurance compliance and enforcement program, the RACE program, to plug revenue leakages, especially at the ports, the infamous fuel bunkering cartels, and small-scale mining exporters cabal. Government will partner the private sector to also introduce digital systems to monitor quarrying, sand winning, and salt winning to get more revenue from our natural resources. And immediately enforce the no duty, no exit policy at the MPS terminal at the Tema port to improve revenue collection. Ladies and gentlemen, Government of Ghana is to conclude external financing arrangement of up to $2 billion in the next 2 to 6 weeks in line with approved external financing for 2022 and for liability management and to manage the slide of the city. MOF, Ministry of Finance, will also work with the Central Bank to review the foreign exchange retention policy in line with approved external financing for 2022 and for liability management. Additionally, the following measures will be implemented over the medium term: wean off public tertiary institutions from government payroll and provide them with a fixed amount block grant instead. Pursue reforms to address structural challenges in public financial management, including procurement and commitment control, payroll management, and human resource management.
There's a lot of reactions greeting this. The minority in Parliament says the measures announced by the Finance Minister will not in any way address the rising cost of living and the rising cost of doing business in the country. In the view of the NDC MPs, the measures are not adequate enough to deal with the current economic crisis, arguing that the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has lost touch with the reality of the Ghanaian economy. Addressing the media shortly after the address by the Finance Minister, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu called on the government to provide clarity on the amount of expenditure cut to ease the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian.
His measures does not respond to a country which is debt distress. Our debt is simply not sustainable. We are told that an additional 45 billion have been added to our interest payment for the first quarter of this year. Where is he going to raise that money? Even with an expenditure cut of about 31 billion, when he already had a deficit of not less than 6.9 billion. He must come properly. On the matter of foreign exchange, he was silent on it. All we heard is that some 2 billion cedis will be brought, $2 billion US will be brought in. That is not enough. We need to have a national conversation on how to increase and expand our exports and reduce imports and stop these knee-jerk responses to exchange rate falls. When the chairman of the economic management team, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, said that he has the key to arrest the depreciation of the dollar, he probably thought that it was as easy as stopping a trotro from Wulugu to Savulugu. It was as easy to stop depreciation of the cedi. He thought it was as easy as stopping a trotro from Wulugu to Savulugu just on the roadside. These are not easy measures. So I thank you very much. The ranking member and deputy ranking will respond appropriately to the text, but we do not find the measures adequate enough to deal with a country which is in debt distress.
Well, he also called on the government to reinstate the toll booth collection service as a form of generating revenue for the country.
On the matter of toll booths, we want it reinstated, and we demand that toll booths be made functional and the revenues accruing from it made available for the Republic. They have no business, as if when you have the mandate to govern, you can just do as you please. Nowhere in the world will you travel and you not see functional toll booths. The state have lost significant amount of money arising out of it. We think that it's only proper that is reintroduced and probably adjusted so that we can rake in the needed revenue and use it as a vehicle to promote public-private partnership in the development of our road infrastructure and other infrastructure needed.
Responding to plans for the reintroduction of the controversial E-levy in Parliament, the Tamale South MP reiterated the minority commitment to oppose it when it is tabled before the House for consideration.
It's announced a number of revenue measures, and there is always effort and attempt to blame the minority on the unpopular E-levy tax, a tax which only manifests a money tax and a lazy tax and a money movement tax. We state again strongly that we will not support E-levy in whatever form and in whatever character he brings it. But let it not be repeated that the minority did not support government in its revenue measures. We did. Only in respect of E-levy that we said that procedurally they were wrong. They should not rush it through a motion as an urgent motion. Thankfully, we have been vindicated. I heard him say that he took a trip to Ho, he took a trip to Wa, to Tamale and Takoradi. Could he have done that if the minority irresponsibly had supported him to do the E-levy under certificate of urgency? He should be thankful to us that we have demanded that he engages further with stakeholders. We are still not satisfied with the outcome. So as I said, on Free Senior High School, we've heard that nothing will change about it. We think that there must be a national conversation on the future of education in our country. There must be, because we should have cause to believe that we are investing in literacy and numeracy and not human capital. It's only in Ghana that at the basic level everybody passes. That cannot be competitive, and that cannot make our products competitive in the world tomorrow.
Well, so what we know is that the finance minister has been speaking for close to 1 hour today, outlining a number of measures. He spoke about 10 issues that you need to know about. Fortunately, Isaac with our research desk is joining us to give us some breakdown on all of the issues that the finance minister has been talking about. Let's talk about the measures.
So quickly, number one, ministers and heads of SOAs to contribute 30% of their salaries from April to December 2022 to the consolidated fund. That's number one.
That's the first
one. Exactly. So you should know that there were about 25 measures raised by, suggested by the finance minister. We've just sampled 10 of them for you to know. So, 2, reduce margins in the petroleum price build-up by a total of 15 pesos per litre with effect from 1st April. And 3, government has imposed a freeze on all foreign travels except pre-approved critical or statutory travels. Now, if you look at the next one, let's move quickly to let's start from number 6. Okay, so 6, reduce expenditure on all meetings and conferences by 50% effective immediately. And then 7, impress upon Parliament to fast-track the passage of the E-levy bill, tax exemption bills, and then fees and charges bills.
Which means government is still eyeing the controversial.
Exactly. The E-levy bill, 7 billion is very significant to our revenue at this moment. And 8, impose a freeze on the establishment of a new public sector institution by end of April. So 9 and 10, government will conclude on ongoing measures to eliminate ghost workers from the government's payroll by end of December. We'll talk about this on pause. And then prioritize ongoing projects, over new ones. Now, we've also been looking at one key measure that the finance minister spoke about, which is the 15% reduction in petroleum price. So we've been taking a critical look at what the situation
is. So it's actually 15 pesos,
15 pesos. So as of December 2021, the average fuel price at the pump was selling at 6 cedis 80 pesos. That's per our own checks. And then March 2022, we moved from 6 cedis 80 pesos to 10 cedis 80 pesos. And there's about more than 58% rise in the period under review. So we asked the question, so if you move from 6 cedis 80 pesos to 10 cedis 80 pesos, is 15 pesos enough to cushion you all the 4 cedis increase in this period? So we asked that question as well. Now, you could realize that on the price build-up, there are about 12 items. Government decided not to touch any of the taxes, but rather,
and we need to stress the fact that this has been the concern of the driver unions.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
The driver unions have always complained about the tax components, the fact that government needs to deal with all these 13 or 12 measures.
So in November 2021, you know, government decided to suspend the price stabilization and recovery levy to
right.
cushion consumers. So the 14% and 16% pesos on petrol and fuel were suspended till February this year.
Right.
And this time around, government is saying, no, we are not going to touch any of the taxes and levies, but we are targeting the bust margin, fuel marking margin, and the marketer's margin, and in the UPPF. And all is supposed to accrue to a 15 pesos reduction in the price of fuel. So that's that. And the price stabilization and recovery levy is to stabilize petroleum prices for consumers. But we've been doing the check, and then we realized that, from 2017 to 2021, government has actually collected a total of 1.8 million cedis. So we asked, you've collected 1.8 billion cedis, is 15 pesos enough to cushion consumers in this moment?
These are critical questions that we need to explore. But Isaac Kofi, I'm grateful that you've been able to give us some breakdown on this. Such a good time now to be having a conversation with Dr. Kesel Forson, who's ranking member on Parliament's Finance Committee. Good evening to you, sir. Thanks for joining us on Joy News Prime. So first of all, for Sam, this is basically government responding to the calls that you've been making over the years. Are you satisfied with the new measures being rolled out by the Finance Ministry?
Not at all, my brother. I say this for a simple reason that after the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee press statement, we're all upbeat that government is going to, after all, confront the situation head on. The monetary policy thrown at the problem, for me, I was satisfied. But I was waiting. I said that the only time that I'll be confident to say that the government has taken a step to confront the problem is when I hear the finance minister to come out with a fiscal policy in addressing the concerns of the investors and major stakeholders of Ghanaian economy. Unfortunately, in spite of the hype, the minister came and said nothing. All the minister said was simply empty. It is not addressing the concerns of major stakeholders for our economy. I say this for a simple reason. My brother, the truth is that the problem we find ourselves today is because of our ballooning public debt stock to the extent that our debts are unsustainable. So I was expecting the minister to confront that head on, only for him to tell us that he is going to borrow additional 2 billion Ghana cedis to further destroy the already sinking economy. That, for me, is not acceptable. In fact, he failed to tell us where he's taking the money from. And I'm very worried, and I just want him to be aware that that singular borrowing will attract the scrutiny of Parliament in a very hard way. Not only that, we were also told that the minister was going to cut some level of expenditures and to create the impression that we will be staying within a fiscal consolidation trend, only for him to come and tell us expenditures that he's cutting that I believe it is absolutely not bringing anything on the table.
He talked about, government has put a cost to that close to 3.5 billion. So
I don't know how you arrive at that 3.5 billion.
Well, if you take a look at the size of appointees that this directive will be affecting,
how much is it
obviously we should be looking at that. All state-owned enterprises, all state-owned enterprises, their heads are slashing salaries by 30%. You don't believe that can amount to some 3.5 billion?
My brother, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. I was expecting our minister responsible for finance to give us a breakdown cost. For him to tell us that, one, the cut in 30% expenditure is bringing X amount of money on the table. He failed to say that. In fact, I was on a program with the Deputy Minister of Finance. He failed to tell all of us how much they are contributing to the state or through the consolidated fund. They only told us that the cut in fuel coupon is bringing in 52 million Ghana cedis. 52 million Ghana cedis. Do they think that the quantum of adjustment we need is 52 million Ghana cedis? This is a government that doesn't seem to understand the magnitude of the problem that we are in as a country. So for me, I am further worried. In fact, I slept after the central bank's review, but I cannot sleep again. I'm worried. The minister's action today will further erode the confidence that the investors are having in our economy. It is going to get worse and worse and worse. Unfortunately, that is the situation we have to find ourselves in.
How do you react to concerns that you're setting double standards, particularly when we've heard from the minority? The minority has talked about how government appointees are traveling all across the world, which is piling more pressure on our fiscal space. You talk about the fact that we're not being prudent in terms of how a lot of the government appointees are not being prudent with the funds of the state. So if government says we're slashing down all of these unnecessary costs, that should come at great joy to you as minority in Parliament.
Brother, we are not talking in vain. We are talking because there is a pregnant problem. And our position is that we want government to take actions in resolving the concerns that not only the minority, but the investing community has on the Ghanaian economy. The kind of cosmetic announcement they've done today will not solve the problem. The Flagstaff House alone, they have workers in excess of 1,000. Each one is at over 71 office holder. I would have suggested, or I would have thought, the government will say that going forward, I've laid off 50% of that workforce. Because you don't need 1,000 people to work at the office of government machinery. You don't need that. You don't need that. All this plenty, so what do you call it, special assistant and all of that, that is the elephant in the room. Not a cosmetic 30% announcement of pay cut. And there are more other expenditures that we are talking about. We had earlier on heard that they were going to review the flagship project. Right. That is taking away so much revenue. Why are they not reviewing it? Why are they running away from it?
We need to go.
These are major concerns.
Right. We need to go, but briefly, the finance minister is hopeful that Parliament will support government to pass the E-levy as a form of a revenue measure. Will you support that cause? Briefly, sir.
It is not me to tell you that I'm going to support. I think my position is well known already. We in the minority will stand opposed to the E-levy every day, any time. And we will oppose it any day, any moment, any time. All what we are asking the minister responsible for finance is for him to bring the bill before Parliament, and we will do what we have to do by opposing it. It's not new. They know our position, and our position remains the same. We have not changed our position. That is what it is. We have said that this is a poor man's tax. It's a tax targeted at the poor man. It is going to erode the very gains that we've made in the economy. And we believe that they should find an alternative tax policy to replace the E-levy. We've said this, and I'm saying it again. Right. We are not against tax policy, but we are against the E-levy in particular.
I'm grateful, Dr. Kesela Forson, for joining us tonight on Joy News Prime. We need to indicate that we're expecting that the Deputy Finance Minister, Abanal Sayasari, would have joined us to have some conversations on this. We'll still work around the links and see if we can have it on. But the small fallouts and reactions to the Finance Minister's address tonight, as the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, says it will still increase transport fares in the coming days, despite government's intervention to reduce fuel by 15 pesos per litre from 1st of April. Now, GPRTU, a National Communications Team member, Samuel Amwa, says the reduction is insignificant.
By the time we were giving the 15%, even the drivers were even complaining bitterly that they were thinking that the 15% increment is too small for us, considering where the fuel price was, considering the spare parts and other components. So now that it has gone up to this to this extent, and now government is coming in to bring or to see to it that it will be reduced a little bit.
I'm sorry, but just give us some clarity. Are you saying that you now want a 15% increment? Because initially the coalition that you formed was demanding 30% hike in the transport fare. So what you're now asking for is the 30%.
No. From the beginning, we asked for 30%.
Right.
Then the government came in to give us 15%. By the time we were giving the 15%, the fuel price was 7.99. Then the agreement is that should it go up, if in case it has been increased up to 8.8, that is the 10% threshold, 8.8 and above, then definitely we also have to go in for another increment. And that is why now the fuel price is around 10.6 to 11 cedis. It has even go beyond, what the 10% threshold. That is why we also did our calculation and we came out with 15%.
Okay.
We wrote to the ministries that we had wanted to increase our lorry fares by 15% based on the current, the current prices.
So the 1.6. So I mean, assuming without admitting that the 1.6 works, what it will mean is that you will still go ahead anyway and increase the transport.
So the 1.6 works. We only have to do our calculations, check if it has come down below the 8.8, then we don't have to,
But I mean, let's do that quickly. Where we are now, a 1% reduction in the 11 cedis margin would not change anything. You agree? So that means that the memorandum has been breached. So transport fares will still go up in the coming days. That's what you're telling us.
Definitely. Else our businesses will collapse. Definitely, wow. It has to go up.
Well, a lot of you have been on social media reacting to the finance minister's address. We just bring that to you and bring you some of the comments that many of you have been sharing with us on social media on today's address. We just bring excerpts of that to you right away. So Sam Aqua says, clearly this government lacks mathematics. If the average increase is more than 20 pesos per annum, why do you decrease it by 15 pesos? That's the comment by Samuel Aqua. There's also another one coming through from Adiku Selom. Adiku Selom says, after witnessing about a 70% fuel price increment this year, the NPP government says it will reduce fuel prices by 1.6% to bring relief to Ghanaians. And he is actually referring to one of the MPs who spoke earlier on our platform. And then Berima Bosom says, what an insult. I guess it's in reaction to the 1.6% reduction in fuel prices. And this is also coming through from Abdul Adamu. Abdul Adamu says -1 plus 10. That's his calculation of what it is that the finance minister has been indicating. But there's someone reacting to this. Nyavi Roxon says, this is good news. And Nyavi Salom, thank you for writing to us on Joy News. Then we also have Abdul Adamu indicating how small and meager that amount is. Kujo says, so we see about that, and more and more of you are commenting on social media. We'll be bringing all the reactions to you as we move on. Still to come in today's edition of the Living Standards series, tenants say high rent is killing them slowly.
The rent issue in this country is becoming a headache that is driving a lot of people crazy.
Now, the minority in Parliament is demanding answers from the majority leadership on why questions programmed for the finance minister were not captured in today's order paper. The minister was expected to answer 12 questions on the economy from MPs. Ranking member on the Roads Committee, Kwame Gavins Abuja, who is incensed over the development, accused the finance minister of disrespecting Parliament. He said the minister is evading parliamentary questions because he has no credible answers to the questions. He spoke to Kwesi Parker-Wilson.
The finance minister has got the worst record of a minister appearing before Parliament to answer questions to ministers. From all I hear, doesn't appear to have any apprehension or any commitment that members of parliament want to ask questions. The questions we have on this floor would have elicited almost all the things he wanted to talk about today at the ministry. So he just doesn't respect Parliament. The majority would have to explain to us why those 12 questions vanished between yesterday and today on the order paper. Some of these questions have been here for 6 months. I've been on in the system for 6 months. So when members prepare to come and answer the question, and this week we are told that the questions will be, we'll have the opportunity to ask the questions, and he just decide that he's got a better job to do somewhere else. He could have come to answer the questions and go and speak to whatever he wants to speak outside. In fact, he's got so much bad news. He can't gather the courage to come here and tell us anything. But he must understand that questions to ministers is like a court summon. You must have a good reason why you are not coming. And today, we are waiting to see what the majority will tell us as being the reason. In any case, some of the questions are from the majority as well, which are very important questions. On the economy, this same economy. So I'm surprised that normally the ministers will write a letter explaining why they are not coming. So far, we haven't cited any of their letters. We are waiting to see what will be the content of his letter.
And can James Jachi Kwesen still hold himself as Member of Parliament for Assin North constituency? Well, Parliament is yet to decide whether he has the legal backing to continue holding himself out as an MP. This comes after the Kwadaso MP Kingsley Nyako requested the House to decide the fate of the MP who was in the chamber. According to him, the ruling of the High Court bars the Assin North MP from holding himself out as such. His call actually generated heated debate amongst the two sides of the aisle. The minority MPs insisted James Kwesen will be recognized as MP until the full determination of his appeal, which is currently pending before the High Court. First, listen to the argument of the Kwadaso MP Kingsley Nyako and the Boakwa South MP Samuel Atacha.
But the High Court ruled, and the Court of Appeal also affirmed, that our honorable friend Kwesen is not supposed to be in the house. So I want to seek your guidance on that. Whether, because, Honorable Speaker, we are law-abiding, we go by the tenet of the Constitution, and I want to find out from you whether his presence here is allowed.
The intervention of the MP for Kwadaso is worth considering, because in the first instance, he said that we have a stranger in this house. Why? The foundation is clear. A court, the High Court, a court of competent jurisdiction declared that is not qualified to be a member of Parliament. This has been affirmed by another court, the Court of Appeal. And therefore, in the face of this authoritative pronouncement regarding his capacity to remain here, if he will insist on coming here, I think he's raised a very legitimate concern. And let it sound strong that he's disqualified to come to this chamber until he's hallowed.
But the minority says they will not tolerate such unauthorized moves to reduce their numbers. Here's Roxanne Nelson Dapiamakwo and Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak.
The matter are two brothers are inviting this house to make a determination. It's unfounded. The matter is sub judice. The matter is before court. The Honorable Atacha has misled the House to suggest that the appeal is not before the Court of Appeal. It was not dismissed. What was dismissed was an interlocutory matter that was set aside on grounds of non-compliance. The substantive appeal is pending. As a House, we cannot tolerate this. That we are inviting the House to make comments on a matter that is before a substantive court of law in this one. And that is our practice. So, Mr. Speaker, our two brothers are completely out of order for raising this matter on this floor. The rights of the Honorable of an appeal
disappointed and worried, because they were adhering to the rules strictly, and some of our colleagues said, oh,
can we just give a window and we hear him? I thought the moment he raised the issue, a ruling was going to come that no, this is not something that will be entertained for now, as Mr. Speaker have done. But unfortunately, the statement that followed from my colleague Honorable Atachia is making me believe that I may be wrong and I may be alleged that he and my colleague planned to do what they did. And that is why he was insisting that it should be heard. And I'm assuring him, because of what you've done, you have broken trust. You have broken trust. The next time you want to do anything, I can assure you will insist on adhering to the rules to the fullest.
The First Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei, also presiding, however, ruled that the leadership of the House will meet on the vexed issue and decide on it in the coming days.
Debate. First, the only thing that has to be verified is whether indeed, after shouting, you are also disturbing the proceedings. Please, order. The appeal has been determined. That is a question of fact. It's not a question of law. And I do not intend that we do that at this moment. I will discuss that with leadership, and then whatever steps we have to take, we'll take after that.
Now, moving away from Parliament, rent control officers are always inundated with people seeking resolutions to rent problems. Lately, a hike in rent charges and payment of at least 2 years of rent advance challenges affecting tenants. Tenants say they can not cope anymore because of the high cost of food, fuel and transport. My colleague Mamiesi Thompson has been engaging tenants and landlords in today's edition of the Joy News Living Standard series. And obviously, you know what time it is. It's time to check out what's happening in the world of entertainment. The man, Ibrahim Ben Bako, is here. IB,
pleasure.
Good to see you.
Yes, always good to see you.
A lot has been happening in the industry.
A lot is happening. A lot is still happening. But I would like us to check up issues that are still coming from the VGMA nominee announcement.
The controversy is not over.
It's not over. You know, every time, every year when it's released, till the time is released until the very day itself, the issues start popping up. And currently, it is with Celestine Donko. Let's do the Celestine Donko first. And you know that Celestine Donko did not make it to the Artist of the Year. Already the manager started crying foul and was talking about the fact that she is the only gospel artist who stood out and should have been in the Artist of the Year category. Well, that didn't happen. Well, this morning on Daybreak Hit Show, the morning show on Hit FM, Celestine was called on the show and she started also making a lot of commentary. She's saying that the VGMA board is not gospel inclined. If they were actually gospel inclined, a lot of music or a lot of songs wouldn't have made it to that particular category. That is the gospel music category.
You were not nominated for Songwriter of the Year and your management were fuming. They were not very happy about it.
Come again?
You were not nominated for the Songwriter of the Year category.
No, I wasn't in that category.
Which you are not very, very comfortable with, because I heard your manager complaining a few days ago.
I wouldn't put it straightforward like that. Like I said, it's quite surprising to me for a song like Only You not to have been nominated in that category. And I feel like I said 100% sure that there was no proper listening of new people or new songs like Only You that should have made it in that category. That is how I feel, because I look.
Also, Ben, the little bits also tell us Amrado has an issue as well.
Yes, Amrado is also saying that he will actually be very disappointed if he shouldn't win the artist or the rapper of the year, because he's in that category. And guess who is there with? Obibini.
Oh, battle of supremacy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So this is Amrado talking to Andy Dusty on Daybreak Hit Show on Hit FM about him being disappointed if he should not win the Rap Artist of the Year?
I'm very happy about the consistency. I've been very active in the game for the past 2 years, and then I was so happy being nominated for the best rap performance, simply because that's one category I always aim at being nominated for, even if I don't win, because I know the most important thing is to win the hearts of the Ghanaians, and then when you're given the plaque, it boosts your confidence. But then I know deep down my heart that I've worked enough to earn it, even though all my brothers on it deserve it as well, because they've also worked hard. But then I'm not gonna say that I don't deserve it, or I'm not gonna be happy if I win it. But then I leave everything into the hands of the people and God, and then my hard work, and then I pray that it pays off.
If you don't win,
and I guess it's all in prayers. Prayers will help you out. What's your best bet, Artist of the Year?
Artist of the Year. I'm just praying that Kidi will come back and win.
Yeah, let's see how that goes. But that's all we have for you in this package of Joy News Prime. My name is Blair Sogandu. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com. We have more updates for you there. Next is Joy Business.